Well, here's another one. This one literally has been completed this week. And in a quick review, this is Boise School District. They have 3,100 employees. They've been a WellSteps client for 4 years now. We now have all their data. We have 6 years of claims data, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of claims. We have their personal health assessment data. We have their biometric screening data. We have their employee eligibility data, their wellness program participation data. And what we do, if we then get legal permission, we get HIPAA compliance checked off, we do decryption, we clean the data, we get the outliers looked at, we do merging, we range check to make sure there's no garbage in the data. We do about 6,000 lines of code in SAS to pull the data sets together to really make sure we're looking at the right things. Then we have to define participation. What does it mean to participate? Is that a health risk appraisal? Is that biometric screening, a health risk appraisal, and 6 of 12 campaigns from WellSteps? How do you define participation? In this particular case, every year they decided if you did certain things, you qualified for the wellness plan, health insurance plan, which had lower copays, lower deductibles, and lower premiums. That's the incentive if you were able to complete them. If you didn't do those certain things and you don't qualify, you get the standard insurance plan, which is not nearly as good. We create groups, participants, non-participants. We adjust the claims for inflation. We set the study parameters. We control for different confounders like differences in age and sex and baseline differences between the groups. And then we calculate the ROI for what this group has really done with their costs. So here's a link on the bottom of this page. This is the Kaiser Family Foundation Premiums and Worker Contributions Survey, goes out every year. For the Western United States, where this school is, this is what the actual Western-wide, any company above 3,000 employees, this is their actual total spend for employees per year across time. This is the expected healthcare costs for similar groups. If Boise School District, this school district, had followed the trend, then they would have matched up pretty much likely just like that. That would what we would expect Boise to do. Remember, trend analysis. And yet, here is where WellSteps kicked in, and here is what happened to their trend. That's what we expected. The blue line is what actually happened. There's a dramatic decline. Now, this is pretty amazing. This school district pays less for healthcare costs now than they did 6 years ago. Way over here in 2009, they were paying more than they're paying right now. This is a zero trend. This is actually a trend that's down. Yeah, it was looking pretty nasty. WellSteps kicks in, we get a big deviation from this, and we compare participants to non-participants. 3 years before the program began, the participants and non-participants had almost identical claims. Once the program begins and we go across time, there is a divergence. Program non-participants cost considerably more than participants. We're able to quantify that, and we know that that savings is $5,025,000 over a 3-year period. Then we look at all what they spent. Well, how much money did they have to spend in their wellness program to get this savings? Well, they spent $1,050,000 over the 3-year period. That includes incentives and salaries and WellSteps and a lot of stuff they're doing. They do a lot of biometric screening, and sometimes they let physicians do it, which is a pretty pricey way to go, but that's what people wanted. They saved $5 million. They spent $1 million. We can do an ROI, a benefit to cost ratio. It's pretty simple. It's a benefit cost ratio of 4.0. We know that they saved about $4 million after expenses from doing this. This paper is in preparation. It'll be sent out to publish probably later in the summer and the fall. But it's amazing what this has been able to show. And you could say, well, what about outliers? We controlled for outliers. We actually eliminated them. They have a stop loss program. Any cost above $250,000 is paid for by their carrier, not the school district. What about regression to the mean? We've looked at that. What about selection bias? Well, it just so happens that non-participants had lower health risks than participants. So we try to look at all these possible factors and eliminate them. So that at the end of the day, this is an organization that works on taxpayer dollars that spent $1 million to do wellness over a 3-year period, and they have a zero trend over the last years that they've been doing this. That's taxpayer dollars that have been saved. And this is tough because school districts are really struggling to do this. Well, the new WellSteps website, you'll remember, WellSteps, we have the tools, we have the ROI calculator. We have the ROI calculator, which we have used in the past to estimate what the cost savings would be. So here's what I put in. I put in the Boise School District data in 2011. They had had 9% increases up to that point, and here's their employees. And here's the calculation. When we do this calculation, we can actually see, here's their trend. If they had done nothing, here's what we anticipated they did. It just so happens that we anticipated that they would save about $3 million from the ROI calculator, an estimate. What really happened with this group is they actually saved $5 million. So the ROI calculator was too conservative in this particular case. The ROI calculator estimated a savings of $2.5 million. They actually saved double that. So the calculator has got some good validation behind it. All right. There's a lot of other studies to back this up. A lot of other studies on changes in behavior, changes in health risks. And now we have studies that have looked at savings in health behaviors. But let me show you one little item here. This guy is not him, but our programmer. We gave him a gift card out of the blue to say, hey, thanks for all your hard work. He called me later and said, I've been programming most of my life. You're the first company to ever send me a gift card saying, hey, we appreciate that. We thank you. He was almost in tears because he appreciated that savings. That little recognition meant a big deal. We pretty much purchased his loyalty for the price of a gift card. Wellness programs can do these things, but they also improve employee morale. And that's a big deal. It's a very big deal to improve morale. There are reasons why employees stick around. It's because they feel wanted, they provide better service, and wellness programs do this. I'm going to skip to this. Let your employees know they're appreciated. Give them responsibilities. Make sure management knows about them and is listening to them. Wellness shows that you care, and wellness programs have an impact. This is especially true when they feel like they're wanted. So back to the critics. The critics are howling. They're all freaked out because of wellness programs this and wellness programs that. Quotes, workplace wellness produces no savings. That's a quote from the critics. Wellness programs are a complete waste of money. That's more from the critics. You've seen 90% of programs are terrible. They're counterproductive. They're worse. If you use what the critics are saying, and you really believe it, then what it says is every single CFO and every single CEO in every major corporation in the United States, and now most leaders in most mid-sized companies, are idiots. Because the critics say these programs are a waste of time and money, and yet the most powerful, influential business people on the planet know that wellness brings value to them. Either the critics are correct, and every CEO and CFO is stupid. That's what this really means if you listen to the critics. And yet, wellness is here to stay. There's more and more companies doing it now than ever. And common sense prevails. No clinical trials, and yet we know tobacco, smoking, seatbelts, healthy eating is important. It's important because it changes people's lives. Wellness programs are the future. They're here to stay. There's plenty of evidence to back these up. They're very powerful tools. In summary, the science is never going to be perfect. Accept it. Good wellness programs become core business strategies because they provide value. Employers and employees see the benefits. They feel the benefits. Good wellness programs provide substantial returns. And lastly, worksite wellness programs are doing more to improve public health than anything else in America today, despite what the critics might say. Troy, I didn't leave much for questions. I know we got a lot. That's where we are.
Thank you, Steve. I think that collectively I heard the air suck out of the room. So you're right. There have not been many questions, but I think everyone's just kind of blown away by everything that you've shared today. but I have a couple of questions, and we don't have much time, maybe 5 minutes. So, can you? We said in the marketing materials we would talk a little bit about value on investment. You did talk about value on investment, but you didn't label it as such. Could you just sort of go back and summarize what we know about VOI?
Let me show you this. This summarizes this. This is what I call the market realities. WellSteps has a performance guarantee. Year one, we guarantee participation to exceed 50%. Year two, we guarantee reductions in elevated health risks or improvements in health behaviors. In year three, we're going to document a cost savings of 150% of the cost in return. What we find in reality is people love year one results. They like the year two results. To date, we've never had a single company say, hey, we want you to do the ROI for us and tell us if we're getting 150% of the cost. They don't ask, which makes me think the ROI might be the reason why they start. But once they get in and once they hear Polly down in accounting say how much her life has changed, once they see the enrollment and the engagement and the participation and the change in the culture, there is an inherent value associated with this program that exceeds whatever their original concerns were about the cost. It's as if this ROI discussion becomes a value on investment discussion, and the value exceeds their need to have an ROI discussion. Nobody asks for this. Boise never asked for their ROI discussion on their claims. We did it because we wanted to provide the science and validate what we're doing. This tells me that at the beginning it might be about ROI, but once they see the value, once they see what's happening within an organization, the discussion switches.
Okay, you have a lot of people who are standing up and applauding, who are saying, great job. They absolutely love this webinar, Steve, so thank you for all your preparation. Here's a great question that we'll have a quick answer by Kate. She wants to know, what's the average spend on employee wellness?
The average is around $150, but for this group that we evaluated at Boise, it's right here. Boise spent $112 per employee per year, and they have a very aggressive incentive program. $112 per employee year is what Boise spent. That's way below the $150 we often hear quoted.
Graydon Yohe, which is a name you may recognize from Oklahoma State. Hey, Graydon, how you doing? Good to hear you. He wants to know what the N was in the Salt Lake County data.
About 3,700. 3,700 people in Salt Lake. The Boise data has 3,108.
Okay, here's another question about work sites are fond of biometric screening. Matt, I'm summarizing the question that you asked earlier. Work sites are fond of biometric screening every year. Does this practice, in your opinion, lead to over-treating because of over-screening versus simply using the United States Preventive Services Task Force screening guidelines?
We have worked with the school district and all of our clients to encourage them to not screen every year. It's a big cost, and the return diminishes dramatically after the very first screening. So we highly, highly, highly encourage groups to follow the Preventive Services Task Force. Screen when necessary. Screening every year is a complete and total disregard for what the science says. That said, Boise has opted to do it every year because the employees love it. The employees want to know, I'm working hard, I'm doing this, I want to get it screened again. So they have opted to pay the money to do it every year. Now they may eventually back off, I hope they do, but they kept doing it because the resounding employee interest in continuing to do this every year, which tells me they're still engaged, they're still concerned about their health, they want to know. We do what our clients want. We encourage them to do otherwise, but that's the situation. I would highly discourage groups from doing that, but in this case, they're listening to their employers, the employees, and the employees want to keep doing it. So it is what it is.
There's just more questions than we can handle here. Here's a question here about in-person versus phone coaching. Comment, please. If it's okay, Steve, I'm going to take this. This may be one of the webinars we do in the next couple of months. Refresh on coaching. I don't know that there's really any good data on in-person versus phone coaching. Your comment quickly?
Not on the ROI. The ROI is a tough one with coaching. If you consider that coaching is one component of a much larger wellness effort, Most of the studies have looked at the larger wellness effort, and it's impossible to tease out what effect might be just from the coaching. If it's a piece of a larger pie, analyze the whole pie. But the ROI for just the coaching piece is very elusive.
We've got time for one or two more questions. Actually, three. I want to ask all three of them. Well, we'll go one at a time. But here goes the question. Critics have criticized publicly the WellSteps ROI calculator. Can you let us know why and why they shouldn't criticize the ROI calculator? I'm in the wellness field, like the ROI calculator. She's not questioning the value, just trying to understand what are the issues from the critics and how you would respond.
Oh, that's interesting. You know, when we first did this, people would put in different values like this. Now we have a warning that pops up that says, oh, by the way, and excuse my French, if you put crap into the calculator, you get crap out. Garbage in, garbage out. So the critics who have blasted this said that their trends were negative 15 for 12 years, or that their cost for healthcare was like $1,200 per employee per year. So what we've done is we've now put in here parameters and say, you got to put realistic data in here. They put crap in, they got crap out. They took pictures and go, oh, look, it's busted. These guys don't know what they're doing. So I won't quote my father, but he uses BS a lot. And this is pure, unadulterated BS. And yeah, I'm a little ticked off about it because they've taken it and run like crazy, and it's just crap. It's garbage in and garbage out. So we've had to put parameters on here so people don't act like idiots anymore.
Okay, I have time for one last question. Be careful how you answer this one. Uh, what is the agenda of the wellness critics? I'm not making these up. These are real questions.
I'm telling you right now, Troy, you've stumped me on that one. What's the agenda? There's Anton Ego right there, and I can't tell you what it is, other than I'm be honest. I'm going to be perfectly honest and blunt. It's somewhere between psychosis and neuroticism. I don't get it. It's not constructive considered criticism. It's just throwing rocks. Great, tell me what to do differently. Well, I'm not going to tell you differently. I'm just going to tell you what you've done sucks. Great, do some research. Well, they don't do research. So it's a great way to get in the media. It's a great way to stir up the fight. It's a great way to fight with people and battle. And I've got other things I haven't shared with you, but some of the critics have done horrible things to the point of extortion, sending letters to deans and colleges around. It's crap. I don't want to end with that. All I
Well,
know is Boise School District is ecstatic about what's happening with wellness.
let's the webinar is scheduled to end about 2 minutes ago. Let's just stay on for another 3 to 5 minutes because there's just way more questions we can handle. But there are some fantastic questions, so we will excuse those of you who want to go. We're going to end the webinar at 8 after the hour precisely. Hard stop. But Steve, there's just a few more questions here. Here's one from Pedro who wants to know if other countries don't have healthcare costs to worry about. How did we do ROI analyses on wellness in countries that have public health provided for them?
You just have to do ROI on everything else on this circle right here, except healthcare costs. You still have presenteeism, absenteeism. You can measure those. You still have disability. You can still measure morale. You can do retention. Everything on that circle except medical costs is an issue to employers outside the U.S.
Question about the Boise School District data. This is a question from Lori. She wants to know, in the Boise School District example, you said the district pays less for healthcare now than they did 6 years ago. Was there a change in health plan that could have accounted for that? She wants to know.
That's a great question, and the answer is no. There is no change in the health plan. What really shocks me is that the non-participants, these people up here who have the highest costs, if you don't participate, your premium is higher, your copay is higher, your deductible is higher, which you would think would drive medical care costs down, but it didn't. Remember, the people in red here are the non-participants, and they're paying more for health care across the board, and their costs are still higher.
There's many questions about outcomes-based programs, and this person is responding to the statement you made about biometric screening, and they said, well, what about outcomes-based programs? How do we work biometric screening into that? So maybe you could just comment on that quickly.
just make sure that you're not being punitive and that you care about people and that your employees know you care. If you come in and say your cholesterol and your blood pressure has to be in this range or it's going to cost you, you're in trouble. Give them a cafeteria, give them a menu option. You can do tobacco, you can do cholesterol, you can do blood pressure, you can do program participation. You can do a variety of things to allow them to kind of pick and choose what they want to do. Just say, we want to encourage you to be long-term, healthy employees here. You pick the way you want to decide if you qualify or not. But if you come in and say, if you smoke and you say you don't smoke, we're going to test your spit with a swab and measure for cotinine, and we're going to find the liars among you. That sends a message that you don't want to send. So you can do outcomes, but you have to do it with love, not with a hammer.
Yeah, there is a broker, Rich Allen, who we work with at Lockton in Dallas, Texas. He calls that malicious compliance. It's a term I absolutely love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do it with benevolence, not maliciousness.
Mm-hmm. There's I think we'll ask one last question, and we'll let this be. By the way, Valerie, thank you, Valeria, for answering the question that Steve just answered. She just commented her answer. She answered one of the questions that you were asked earlier. So this is a question directly from Matt. Critics also crow about selection bias and motivated participants skewing our data. Can you address this?
Yeah, if you look at and compare the two groups, remember, here's the participants, here's the non-participants. Red is non-participants. Their healthcare costs are about the same. For 3 years before the program ever began, they're about the same. Then we dig in and say, what's the difference in BMI between the groups? How many males and females in each group? What's the difference in cholesterol? Who's physically active? Who's not? We compare these two groups at baseline to see if there's any differences. It's almost not always a perfect match, but from this point on, what's the difference between the two groups? It's mostly wellness program participation. After we look at and we control for statistical differences here, at this point on, all things are almost perfectly equal. That gives credence to the fact that it's the wellness program that's causing these differences. So yeah, we try to control for differences at baseline. We can do that statistically in a variety of ways. These, by the way, have been controlled for age and gender. So the number of males and females in each group is the same. We've already adjusted for that. So we try to address selection bias issues with statistical control for any differences along the way. And that's way more information than you wanted to hear.
I think with that, there are many people again who've expressed gratitude, who've chimed in and said, "Thank you, Steve." I will echo all of those comments. I apologize to those of you who asked fantastic questions. We just don't have time to get to all of them today. We'd like to give you the month of July off. We will not be doing a WellSteps webinar in July. However, we will be resuming in August. We will be announcing that webinar topic as a time approaches. Watch your email for that. On behalf of everybody at WellSteps, we'd like to say thank you. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you in a couple months. Thanks, everyone.